Howdy, it's Jim Morado, and we spent the day at the Kentucky Gateway Museum Center recently. This is actually December 19th, 2020, and we spent a very long time here because they had several displays. In fact, I'm breaking up the videos I took over several parts. But I did want to mention they had this great display that's about to end, the age of the ocean liner, steamships on the North Atlantic before the triumph of the jet, from the collection of Ashley and Barbara Ford, Cincinnati, Ohio. They had just a really great display on steamships, of course, from the North Atlantic. You know, of course, there's mention of the Titanic and some other famous, the Queen Mary, some other ships. And this was just a really cool little display. I know we've stopped and seen several of the Titanic exhibits when they've come through areas where we've lived. And I love this kind of thing. We personally took our first cruise a few years ago. We kind of did a New England slash Canada cruise that was really nice. I'll probably try to get that video up at some point in the future. But I love the ephemera related to the old steamships, and there's some great models and other things put up. And I didn't film in here a whole lot, but I did want to make just a couple of quick notes. As I read through the pamphlets that you can pick up at the museum, they talk about how steamships and passenger ships are extinct. Basically, the jet made them useless because, you know, the steamships, the passenger ships, were made just to transport people back and forth. And with the there's a nice looking Zeppelin. Yeah, with jets coming around, there just wasn't a use for them. They weren't as efficient or cost effective, etc., etc. And this display focused on a few very specific ships, and I just wanted to read from the back of one of the pamphlets that they give you. And it talks about how some of these ships that are kind of the focus of this exhibit, what happened to them. And it mentions the Queen Mary of 1936. Without her engines, is now an evocative hulk on display as a museum in Long Beach, California. I just read a book about the Queen Mary not too long ago. The first Queen Elizabeth of 1940 burned and sank in Hong Kong Harbor in 1972 on the way to being converted to something, though it was never made clear what that was. The astonishing United States of 1952, the fastest of them all, and therefore the final holder of the blue riband for speed on the Atlantic, is tied up in Philadelphia, stripped of everything of value or appeal except her mighty profile. I remember I saw a documentary on that ship not too long ago. It's really sad. I hope they can do something with that ship. French line Splendid France of 1960 was the last to be built exclusively for North Atlantic crossings, but she, after a decade of cruising out of Miami as the Norwegian Cruise Line's SS Norway, was eventually broken up on a beach in India. The Cunard Line's elegant and beloved Queen Elizabeth II, built for cruising as much as crossings, is now a decaying hulk tied up in Dubai, where she was intended to be converted into a hotel but never was. These endings were inevitable once the jet airliner became available to provide the line service which ocean liners were built for. And the ending came amazingly fast, and barely 20 years after the 707 jet started service on the North Atlantic, ocean liner Roe along the Hudson River went from apparent prosperity to memory. There are, of course, still passenger ships on the world's oceans. They are just not ocean liners because they are meant for cruising rather than transportation, nor are they built to take the North Atlantic winter and keep on schedule. It also mentions that the Queen Mary II in this exhibit is therefore a cruise ship, even though she is contracted like a liner for the past and even makes regular crossings. Because if you do take her across the Atlantic sometime, it is because you want the pleasure of the cruise rather than because you need to get to the other side. But her main whistle is from the Queen Mary of 1936. If you ever have the privilege of being at sea on board this fine ship, be sure to go topside just before noon to hear it blow, and think of the wonderful age of the ocean liner now gone. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. The Queen Mary II has that connection to the original. kind of the voice and the spirit of it. That's pretty neat. I know when we did our cruise, we actually went to a couple sites associated with the Titanic. We went to a cemetery in Canada where most of the people who lost their lives that were recovered on the Titanic are buried, and that was something special to me. And I believe we were going over some of the spots where the Titanic roughly would have been cruising to, so that was kind of a treat. And of course, I took along a book about the Titanic to read on that particular cruise. But yeah, so here's this nice little display they have going, and I just wanted to mention it real quick. So yeah, check that out.